I guess the strangest thing was that he was cropped out of the photo. You'd assume a family Christmas card would have, the whole family in it. But he wasn't in it. The back of the card said something like, "Walter sends his love from camp," or something like that. Who goes to camp during Christmas when it's freezing? They could have photoshopped him in, or just included a separate photo of him altogether. Or maybe not make a Christmas card like you're some family from the 60s? I don't know. Maybe I'm just salty that they do this. Because if you study the card for more than an instant, you would see the extra shadow, the fire cast on the edge of the photo frame. Tomorrow, they were having a get-together, one with their adult friends, so I was contacted to take care of Walter for the night. From what Jen described, he seemed like a nice kid. He loved playing chess and video games, and he liked baking too. I was too turned off by the weird Christmas card crop. I was, however, more than a little nervous by the fact that Walter's father, Mike, had a gun in the house. He had texted me yesterday, reassuring me it was locked away in a safe, and that Walter didn't know the code. He told me the code, though. I got there a few minutes before the parents were leaving. "Thank you so much for doing this, Sally," Jen said, as she put some earrings on. "We're excited for a night out." To be honest, she didn't look too excited. Mostly, she was worried. Jen pulled on her coat as Mike walked in with a dress shirt and khakis. "Thanks again, Sally. Remember all the stuff I told you. Eat and drink whatever you'd like and be safe. You're all gonna have a great time tonight," Mike said. "All? Two of us?" I asked. Mike chuckled. "Yeah, both of you, I meant." I smiled. "Thank you. I can't wait to meet Walter." The couple smiled awkwardly and looked down. "See you hopefully before 10. With that, they walked out into the snowy night. They didn't mention or even say goodbye to Walter. I sighed and walked into the kitchen. I figured Walter could come down when he wanted to. I didn't want to bother him. It was only 7 after all, so I had 3 hours to kill. My eyes went immediately to the liquor cabinet. I shrugged and walked over to it, browsing for a bottle to nurse. I picked one finally. Then, a quiet but aggressive voice came from behind me. "Hi, are you the babysitter?" I spun around, and the bottle went into my jacket pocket. The boy stood at the entrance to the kitchen, hugging the corner of the wall. He looked like a scared animal. As far as I could tell, though, he looked normal. Why was he cropped out of the card? My heartbeat slowed down. "Oh my gosh, hi Walter. Yeah, I'm Sally. It's so great to meet you." He was still hiding behind the edge of the wall. I bent down a little so I was more on his level. "You too," he said. He had the same worried look, the one on his face that his parents did before they left. I kinda looked to the side awkwardly. "Do you want something to drink or eat maybe?" Walter shook his head. "Okay," I said. "Do you want to come out from behind the wall?" Again, he shook his head. "What if I want to give you a hug?" I said. He was a cute-looking kid. I could see the edge of his lips begin to curve into a smile, but still, he refused. "All right then, guess I'm coming to you." I started strolling over there exaggeratedly. "No, wait, stop!" Walter yelled. The seriousness of his tone actually alarmed me. "Promise me you won't laugh?" he asked. I nodded my head. "Okay." He stepped out from his hiding place. Walter had 2 heads. My heart stopped, and I took an involuntary step back. "Are you going to laugh at me?" he asked. His voice broke my heart. His own parents wouldn't put him in the Christmas card. I caught my breath again. "What's there to laugh at?" I said. A smile crept across his face. His first face. His other one, well, I tried not to look at that one. Its eyes were dull and half asleep, and its mouth hung open slightly, a dark spot of drool forming on the boy's bright blue shirt. "I'm sorry they didn't tell you." It's okay. Just, it's best not to look at him, Walter said. My lips forced a smile, and I cleared my throat. So, do you want to watch a movie? I asked. Walter smiled again. So, we sat down in the family room on the couch and put on a superhero movie, the ones with the big explosions and fights. Walter sat beside me, and honestly, I wasn't as freaked as I thought I'd be. Walter was just a regular kid who was dealt a bad hand. The movie got underway, and it was getting late. About halfway through, I noticed Walter was asleep. One head, his head, was laying down on the arm of the couch. The other was straight up, looking at me with a wide grin. I had to take a double take. The other head spoke. "Great movie, huh?" The voice was deeper than Walter's and raspy. "I know why you're here." I cleared my throat. "I'm here to take care of you for the night. Your parents are having a get-together and reached out to me." "That's not why," he said. I turned back to the movie, eager for the real Walter to come back. Unfortunately, the other head kept speaking. "We sure are having a fun night. You know what would make this even more fun?" I mechanically shook my head. My breathing intensified. The head leaned forward. Instinctively, I did the same. "Show me where the gun is." I pulled back. Walter? I'm not gonna do that. I don't even know where it is," I said. "Don't call me that. That's not my name. And you aren't a very good liar. Just tell me where it is." "No," I said, probably louder than necessary. But putting my foot down seemed necessary at that point, and it was clear that the boy I was talking to was not Walter. "I'm sorry. I have to go to the bathroom." I couldn't come up with a better excuse to leave him. Walter, I knew, despite only having met him an hour ago. Whatever that thing was, wasn't Walter. I got to go to the bathroom and pulled out my phone to text Mike. "Hey Mike, sorry to bother you, but I just had a concerning talk with your son. I think it might be best if you two return home soon. Again, I'm so sorry for intruding on your night out." I waited in there and flushed the toilet to avoid suspicion. After a few minutes, Mike responded. "Don't worry, Sally. We're on our way back. I hope you're safe." I breathed a sigh of relief, collected myself, and opened the bathroom door. The boy was standing just outside it. "Liar," he said. Excuse me?" "What did I lie about?" I respond. "I wasn't talking about you, Sally." Walter's head was asleep and unconscious. "Okay, I've had enough of this. Walter, hey buddy, please, wake up," I yell. His eyes remained closed, and the other head looked at me, smirking. "He can't hear you. You see, he's too focused on trying to breathe." "Oh shit. Hey, please, come on, let him breathe, come on! Your parents are on their way." I pulled my phone out of my pocket for emphasis. The other head rolled its eyes. "Fine, you're no fun," he said. Walter's eyes opened slightly, and he looked around, confused. In a split second, he lunged forward and grabbed my phone from my hand. All he had to do was scroll up to my text with Mike this morning, and he would know the code for the safe, and exactly where it is. "No!" I yelled out as he darted down the hall and up the stairs. I could hear Walter attempting to gain control again. He ran into his parents' bedroom and locked the door tight. This was bad, extremely bad. I started banging on the door, yelling for them. I wasn't worried about me. There was silence on the other side. Then, a loud bang and a sharp sting on my forearm. I yelped, turned around, and barreled down the stairs. I could hear his sick footsteps following me. "Come on, we're just having some fun, right? Get back here." I ran out of the house and got halfway down the street before I realized he still had my phone. Shit. I turned back and winced as the pain of the bullet in my arm caught up to me. A couple neighborhood dogs were barking in the distance. He was standing in the doorway when I returned. "I think you forgot something," he said. Walter met my eye, and we shared a solemn look. "Get inside." I did as he said. Why weren't his parents home yet? The three of us walked into the kitchen, and he had me sit down at the dining table. The room was dimly lit, and the shadows hugged the other head's face. "I'm done with him being in control. I don't want it to go like this, but I have to do it." He pressed the gun to Walter's head. Walter was silent, but tears leaked down his face. And then, I remembered the nice bottle of wine in my jacket pocket. Without thinking, I drew it out and crashed it against the other head. The gun dropped to the floor. I darted down, picked it up, and ran outside. As much as I felt bad about leaving Walter in there, my arm was still bleeding, and I needed Mike and Jen to be here. I called 911 and said I had been shot, and then I called Mike. But he wouldn't pick up. I tried 3 times before I grunted and went to text him. "Mike, you need to get over here right now. Your kid isn't safe." "Sally, just get out of there. We will handle the rest." "What?" I texted back. "Your kid is in there, probably traumatized." For some reason, I didn't mention the other head. Not that they didn't know it, but right then, my focus was on Walter. Mike sent me one last text before he blocked my number. "I told you where the gun was for a reason."
At the time of this story, I was a 16-year-old high school student. I got a babysitting job for a couple who had a family wedding, and they needed a babysitter for a super late night. I was referred to them by another family that I used to sit for. Keep in mind, this was when cell phones were just coming out, so I had a super crappy flip phone with a certain amount of minutes. There were 3 kids. The oldest was a boy about 8, middle boy about 6, and little girl who was a toddler in diapers and couldn't speak. I came while the sun was still up to meet the kids, while the parents were still there. The parents were so cool. They showed me where all the snacks were, and they gave me the ground rules for the night. Kids in bed by 7:30, teeth brushed. You know the drill. Once they left, we started off eating dinner. To my shock, the middle child, who we'll call Teddy, kept throwing his fork super hard at his siblings and pinching his sister with his nails. He kept kicking my shins and throwing his food around the room. The moment his parents left, he became a terror. Their house was old but remodeled, so their toys were in the basement playroom. So after dinner, we all went into the basement to play. As soon as we went down the stairs, it felt wrong. Don't get me wrong. It was a beautiful finished basement with a couch, flat screen, and toys, but something just felt really creepy about it. Then the little girl kept pointing at a blank wall, one with no pictures or anything on it, and then kept screaming at the top of her lungs and crying. It really unnerved me. At this point, I'm getting a really bad feeling. So I say, let's go upstairs and watch TV till bedtime. The kids seem to love that idea. So I carry the little girl upstairs and turn the TV on for the 3 of them and go back down to grab her favorite stuffed dog and clean up a bit. When I turned around to walk upstairs, I then see Teddy smiling a sickening smile at the top of the stairs. He had his hands on the light switch. My stomach dropped. I didn't have my phone or a light if this little shit locks me down here, I thought. The light switch is at the top of the stairs outside of the stairway, so if he closed that door, I was screwed. He flicks off the lights, cackles, and goes to slam the door and lock me in the dark basement. I had never moved so fast in my existence. I flew up the stairs and shoved my hand in the door to keep him from locking me in there. I asked him why he did that, and then yelled at him to never do it again. And all he did was smile at me, then slowly walk away, giggling. I iced my hand and watched him closely for the rest of the night. Bedtime comes around and I put the kids to bed upstairs without any problems. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs, parents' room at the end of the long hall, the baby girl's room in the middle, and the boys shared a room with a bunk bed at the end of the hall by the top of the stairs. Everything finally seemed quiet, and I began to forget all about the horrors from earlier and began watching TV. About an hour after I put her down, the baby girl started screaming again through the baby monitor, a scream that sounds like she's in pain. Thinking her brother Teddy is bothering her, I run up the stairs to stop him. As soon as I get to the top of the stairs, I see him laying down on his bed facing the wall. The baby is hysterical and is again pointing at nothing and crying. I'm freaked the fuck out by now. I rock the baby back to sleep, check on the boys, then return to the living room. What the hell is happening? Am I imagining these things? I shake it off and turn the TV back on. This is when the night goes from bad to a fucking nightmare. Once back in the living room, I start to hear screaming every couple of minutes. What sounds like a grown man screaming in pain. At first, I thought it was outside, or maybe a TV or radio. So I just ignored it and kept watching TV. Or maybe my imagination. But soon it became clear that it wasn't a joke or it wasn't my imagination. It was coming from inside the house. Then I hear footsteps. I hear what sounds like little feet running upstairs in the hallway. For a second, I'm not scared anymore. I'm angry that Teddy's out of bed 2+ hours after bedtime. I go to the bottom of the stairs and holler up Teddy's name and tell him to go to bed. I don't hear a response, but I hear the footsteps continue. Then I hear what I think is him running into his parents' room at the other end of the hall. Feet pounding down the hallway as clear as day. So I run upstairs, thinking I caught him in the act. The hall is empty and dark. I turn and find that Teddy's sitting up in his bed, just staring at me again with that sickening smile. I could see that his brother was asleep on the top bunk, and I could see his baby sister asleep on the baby monitor in my hand. He gave me the creeps. I tell him to lay down, and I go back downstairs to the middle floor. I then hear someone walking up from the basement, and I just lost it. I slam and lock the basement door, and I call my house number. My brother answers, and I tell him I'm scared. He then puts me on speaker, and I explain everything to my family. Now, I babysit every weekend, and I've never had a negative experience or called them like this. So luckily, my family believed me. My grandpa, being a super religious man, prayed with me, and he calmed me down. My big brother got in his car to come and sit with me until the parents got home, but the town I was in was a bit of a drive, so he told me he'd be there in about 40 minutes. Even after we hung up, I could still hear the footsteps running around the house. I'm not a religious person, but I sat on the couch and prayed and cried. I've never been so scared in my life. I was terrified. The parents actually came home before my brother got there, and they saw I had been crying. They asked me what happened, and I told them everything non-supernatural that happened, because I didn't want them to think I was a crazy person, or tell people not to hire me. I just wasn't going to mention it at all. So I just said Teddy was a handful, and that was it. As I was leaving, the dad then said in a dead serious voice, "Did the ghost bother you?" I then slowly turned to him, not fully believing him. I asked him if he was serious. He then said, "Oh, I'm being serious. We've kind of had a ghost problem for a while now. Did you experience anything yourself?" I broke down and started crying, and I gave them an honest recap of the night. I told them about the screams I heard clear as day, the footsteps, everything. How the baby was crying at the wall, and how Teddy tried locking me in the basement. They believed me right away. The parents said they moved into the house about 2 years ago after the man who built the house died in it. He was an actual hoarder, and he apparently fell and he injured himself in the basement, and he ended up dying among his piles. And since no one could hear him scream, they didn't find him in time. By all accounts from the neighborhood, he was a mean recluse of a man. Either way, what a terrible way to go. They said they would wake up every night to things flying off in the kitchen counters and the doors slamming. They would hear knocks and pounding in the walls. I was shocked. I asked why they stayed in the house if they knew it was haunted. They explained they weren't able to move due to their jobs and current financial situation. And I have to admit that though it wasn't huge, it was an absolutely beautifully built home. The old construction kind of home with bookshelves built in the walls and a winding grand staircase. The dad said he would go downstairs every night for a year and say, "Go away. This is our home now. You aren't welcome here." Over and over. He said that eventually the activity stopped. They said it only sparked up when someone new would stay in the house, or when they had a sitter at night. They said this since I knew the truth now, that they would pay me extra to come back, because they could never keep a babysitter. Pfft, yeah, right, I thought. I'm never coming back here. But I said I'd be in touch, and I ran out of the house. I had to wait for my brother in their driveway, and he followed me home. I'm really ashamed to say that I never answered their calls again. I felt bad, but there was no way in hell I'd ever return there. I do still babysit every once in a while, and I've never had an experience like that since. I do still think of those kids sometimes, and I really do think that Teddy was being affected by the spirit in the house. I've never encountered a child so cruel, so negative. Thinking of his little smile still sends a chill down my back. I really hope they were able to move or clear the negative energy. Either way, it's one night I'll never forget.